When we come to practice meditation, our aim is to reduce and overcome stress and suffering, and to find peace, happiness. And that means we have to look and learn about our mind and where stress and suffering comes from. What is its cause? And the Buddha identified that the cause of suffering is ignorance, which conditions craving, which conditions clinging, becoming, birth, aging, sickness, death, and all the different kinds of suffering that we experience. So the central part of our practice is cultivating mindfulness so that we can recognize craving, clinging as it comes up, and then develop the wisdom, the understanding to abandon it. So every time we come to meditate, we're doing that in one way or another, cultivating the virtues and the wholesome qualities of the mind, which we often just call the magga, the path factors, and abandoning, letting go of the unwholesome states of mind, which we call kilesa, mental defilements or hindrances. So often it seems like our practice is just a struggle between the two. Sometimes the Dhamma is strong, mindfulness is strong, wisdom and understanding is there, so we can let go of our craving, clinging, and the experience of suffering seems to fade away. But other times our mindfulness disappears, and maybe other wholesome qualities disappear, and the mental defilements come back into the mind, seem to run the show, and so we experience more stress, more suffering. Back and forth like this. So the Buddha was encouraging us to practice, to develop strength of mind. So one way he described the qualities that we're developing as powers or strength. The 5 powers, 5 bala. That's sattha, which means faith, confidence in the teaching and the path of practice. Virya, which means effort, persistent effort in the practice. Sati, mindfulness. Samadhi, states of calm, stillness that arise out of mindfulness practice. And then panya, insight, wisdom. These are all strengths of mind that we have to practice, develop. And when they're all present, these different qualities are all present together, then we can have the wisdom to see the true nature of our mind, and particularly where suffering comes from and how to abandon it. And we can't abandon suffering in the past Because it's already happened. And in the past, it's left its impression. We've been worried and afraid, or angry, or greedy, selfish, or confused in the past. We might be able to remember that, but we can't change the past. But when it gives its result in the present, we have a chance to practice to let go of our craving and attachment in the present. And sometimes you can see suffering disappear right before your very eyes when mindfulness comes up and you realize that thought and that mood that you were suffering with is just a thought or a stream of thoughts. It's just a feeling. It arises, it passes away, and then it's gone. Of course, as we're practicing, we can maybe only do that for a few moments, and then we lose our mindfulness and our understanding. And we're back to square one, maybe. So this is why we keep practicing, to make the mind strong, to make the qualities of Dhamma, of the path, strong. So that our faith in the Buddha and the practice is not easily shaken. So that our effort does not easily disappear. We become dull or lazy. So that our mindfulness doesn't slip away and so on. We're making our mind strong in the practice by practicing over and over again. With patience, with effort, with goodwill. We keep on training and practicing the mind so that some of these qualities stick because they become powers or strength. So we keep practicing bringing up mindfulness directed to a meditation object. There are, of course, many techniques, objects we use. We use the breath, we recollect the Buddha, we cultivate loving kindness. Sometimes we do all or many techniques in one go. So you might begin your meditation, you bow to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, so you recollect Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Then you spread thoughts of loving kindness for a few moments, to yourself, to everyone else. Then you bring your attention to the breath. So in terms of technique, you may have already used a few different techniques just in a short period of time. All of those could be expanded and done. We could do more, but often we just begin in a very simple way, remembering the Buddha, our teacher, spreading metta, and then putting effort on the breath, knowing the breath, the in-breath, the out-breath. So we look and learn from the meditation, and sometimes we have to experiment and see what technique, what object we find suitable for us. But the aim of any technique is to get us to see the mind, to know the mind. The technique itself is like a tool, but it's not an end in itself. The aim is to have mindfulness, to have effort, bring up mindfulness, And when mindfulness is more continuous, then body and mind relax. We let go of some of the coarsest or the worst kinds of stress. That's why you feel relaxed. You let go of tension in your body, let go of some of the distractions from the mind. So you start to have a sense of well-being arise. If you keep putting attention on the breath over and over again, we get better at holding attention there and the mind settles down. When you lose mindfulness, the mind wanders away. It seems like it's gone somewhere else. Actually, it's still right there. It's just the quality of mindfulness has disappeared. When the mindfulness is gone, then there's no clear comprehension, there's no insight. So it's as if the mind is lost. So we say our mind wanders away, maybe for many minutes. But actually it's still right there, it's just changed its object. Now the object is something more unwholesome and without mindfulness. But if we keep practicing, bringing attention back to the breath over and over again, then the mind does settle down. It wanders off less, becomes more satisfied with the breath as an object, gets to know the breath better, becomes more familiar with it, learns new things about the breath, the relationship between the breath and the body, how the body settles down as you become aware of the breath. And you may experience different factors of samadhi arise. Vitaka and vichara is applying your mind to the breath and knowing the breath. Vichara is sustaining attention on the breath. So when mindfulness is more continuous, you're knowing the breath from moment to moment to moment. So your mind doesn't wander away, doesn't get lost in doubt, and it's not falling asleep. So you'll feel better in yourself, more calm. You might even experience rapture, piti. And piti can arise in different ways for different people. Sometimes you feel very light, have a strong sense of well-being, lightness in your body and mind. You might have tingling sensations, or hair stand on end, tears form in your eyes. Some people even seem to shake a bit, move around a bit. If the piti becomes stronger, you can feel like you're floating. Or you can feel like your body seems to disappear, or it becomes weightless and you just can't sense it anymore. There are different kinds of piti, but they come about because the mind is merging with its object and the mindfulness is continuous. We're no longer so easily distracted. Even if thoughts arise, they don't distract you. You can see them just arise, pass away. Even if you hear a sound or have a sensation, even a painful feeling in your body somewhere, doesn't distract you when piti arises. It's a very refreshing experience. And it counters the tendency towards boredom or aversion, irritation. So you feel happy to carry on meditating. Brightens the mind, energizes the mind. Because the mind is brightening, feel more content, more happy. So then happiness, sukha vedana, arises. And that really settles the mind. You feel happy and content to be doing the meditation. Sometimes in Thailand they call that the smiling mind. When you're happy inside, jit yim. It's as if your mind has a little smiley face on it. Because it's not bothered by the past, thoughts of the future, worries, business, stuff you still got to do in life, problems with other people, health issues, money issues, whatever things normally fill our minds up and cause us stress and distraction. That's all gone, so the mind is very happy in itself. So it's like it has a smile on its face. So the mind is not restless or agitated. It's not looking around for other things to do. One danger, though, is that we become dull if we slacken off our effort. We're not careful to keep bringing up mindfulness. We can sink into dullness because we feel happy. Then we become dull. Maybe even just fall asleep. Sometimes people think when they experience a bit of samadhi, stillness of mind, then they should be radiant and alert. But one of the main dangers of that is that as soon as mindfulness slips, you just fall asleep or become dull. So we have to keep bringing up the mindfulness to stop the tendency to fall asleep, become dull, go into a state of kind of not knowing anything, where we're numb. To keep directing the mind to the breath, to know the breath, even if the breath becomes so subtle you can hardly feel it. You still keep putting attention there. Even if it disappears altogether, then you just notice where it's disappearing, but you keep attention there, right with the mind. The last factor to arise is the hardest one of all, one-pointedness, ekaggata. Because it means you completely absorb or stick with the breath and the mind itself, and you're not letting your other senses bother you. So sights and sounds no longer bother you. Feelings in the body are not bothering you. So physically you don't have to move anywhere. Mentally you don't have to move. You don't have to look for any other object. Even memories and pleasant memories and interesting thoughts don't bother you anymore. The mind is just knowing itself. It's what we call one-pointedness or unification of mind. If one experiences that, then because the mind is not bothered by the body anymore, then you can sit like that for a long time. But even before one experiences one-pointedness. When piti and sukha, rapture and happiness arise, the mind is very content, so you can often just sit, or if you're walking meditation, the same, you just carry on walking for quite a long time, or just carry on sitting for a long time. But if the mind is not one-pointed yet, then it can still think, thoughts can arise. But those thoughts are not going to bother you very much, as long as you maintain mindfulness. So you can allow a thought to arise, maybe even you start thinking about some aspect of Dhamma. As long as piti and sukha are still maintained and you still maintain your mindfulness, you can even risk allowing your mind to think about Dhamma. Maybe trying to understand a particular issue about something, some problem you've had, or just looking at the impermanence of your thoughts, how they arise and pass away, how they're not very real, not very solid. Or if you've had some negativity, some suffering or negativity in your life, and it comes up, you can just think about it and consciously let it go. As long as the piti and sukha is there, then your thoughts don't really harm you or bother you much. So you can contemplate. You might realize that a lot of things that you think are important in life are not that important. Things that you think are happiness are maybe not so pleasurable, or the kind of pleasure you get from those things is very temporary. So new kinds of knowledge and understanding can arise when you're meditating peacefully like that. You understand yourself, your mind, your body better. But if the piti and the sukha start to fade, then you have to go back to establishing mindfulness with effort on your meditation object. Otherwise you'll find your mind just ends up back to square one, and just endlessly thinking, but those thoughts no longer have any Dhamma with them. There's no real understanding or insight. If you're practicing regularly, whether you're on retreat or at home, sometimes your mind may just go to that state of calm where the piti and sukha arises. Maybe it's triggered by thinking of something very wholesome, thinking of the Dhamma, a teaching, or thinking of some good action you've done before, or seeing somebody else doing something very wholesome. Your mind just goes back into that state. It could be at a time when you weren't expecting it. You're walking along the road, or you're sitting at a desk working, or you're in a situation which is a more normal situation, but your mind just settles down and piti and sukha can arise. Then you realize how powerful the karma of meditation is, because it can lead to those states of mind sometimes arising spontaneously. Of course, we also have to do the practice. There won't always arise spontaneously, and even if they do arise spontaneously, that's not something you can really plan. So we continue to practice mindfulness every day. One thing that will help preserve your mindfulness is the practice of the sila. Trying to keep 5 precepts or 8 precepts. So that's training your mind to let go of negative intentions, to harm yourself, harm others. So Ajahn Chah said, practicing sila is like the parents of the mind, looking after your mind, keeping it protected, keeping it away from suffering. So even if you find your mindfulness is not very strong yet, if you determine to keep the precepts, then it gives you a certain steadiness and happiness. You don't feel guilty or much regret because you haven't been doing or saying things to regret. While you put effort into keeping the precepts, then you can practice meditation and slowly your mind will become calm and peaceful again, even if you meet with some stress or suffering in life. Maybe you have a problem with another person, misunderstanding, or they give you some trouble, or you meet some health problem, or somebody you love is suffering and you're worried about them. These different situations will happen, but if you're keeping the precepts and you practice meditation regularly, then your mind will gradually come back to the Dhamma. Even though you may have been affected by whatever's been going on, stressful situations, your mind returns to the Dhamma quite quickly. Lumpur Chah used to say it's the hardest part of meditation is not practicing mindfulness and making your mind calm and steady. It's maintaining it once it is calm and steady. Because we so easily get distracted and get lost in the different experiences that we face every day. So practicing sila, precepts, will help to prevent that. Makes your mind very firm, like a firm foundation. Your mind stays steady even though other things are happening around you, and life is not always smooth and easy, but the precepts give you a foundation. And in practicing kindness and generosity is the same. These are very wholesome, skillful kinds of karma. If you practice generosity every day, helping the people around you, and it can just be in small ways, simple ways, but you keep doing it. Also, this helps to preserve your mind, brings a good feeling for you, for other people. And it also supports our meditation, because when you practice kindness, generosity, you become more sensitive to others, and you're letting go of some of your own selfishness or anger. So we need to keep practicing regularly and be very patient through the times when the mind is not peaceful. But if you keep practicing, then your mind will get used to becoming peaceful, get used to the state of peace, state of calm. So then you can find it again more easily than before. So for the rest of the period we can carry on meditating.